This happened last Halloween season, just a few months ago. I'm Ben, 32 years old now, and I've just moved back to my childhood hometown after years in the city. I thought attending the local Halloween parties would help me. They had always been fun traditions, but this time felt different. I still think about what happened. At the first party, I stepped into a cozy living room. It was filled with decorated pumpkins and laughter. The smell of cider filled the air. I glanced around, taking in old friends. I felt almost normal again. But then I overheard a whisper about a local legend related to the town's founder. I didn't think much of it at first. The minute I relaxed, a chill swept through the room. I noticed the lights flicker for a moment. Everyone laughed it off. I chuckled too, but an uneasy feeling crept up my spine. I didn't understand why. It felt wrong. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. The stories lingered in my mind. A few days later, I went to my second party. It was at a neighbor's house. I was excited to see everyone again. Suddenly, a woman dressed as a witch approached me. She insisted I knew her somehow. I didn't recognize her at all. Her eyes seemed too intense, like they were searching my soul. I think I mumbled something about not remembering, but she kept talking. Her tone made me uneasy. "Ben," she said, "we've met before. You know me." I felt my palms get sweaty. I didn't know what to say. She leaned in closer, and it felt like shadows were dancing around us. I think I couldn't breathe. Eventually, I moved away from her, feeling a little lightheaded. The laughter around us faded into background noise. I questioned if I was imagining things or if something was wrong with my mind. The final party happened a week later. I felt a bit anxious, but I didn't want to be rude. When I arrived, it was crowded. I found myself cornered by a man dressed as a ghost. He spoke in a low voice, almost cryptic. "What does the past teach?" he asked. "History always repeats." I listened but couldn't follow. My heart raced. I looked around for help. I wanted someone to join our conversation, but everyone seemed busy. I felt trapped. He just stared at me without blinking. I thought I might scream. The uneasiness swirled in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to escape, but I forced myself to stand there. We talked about old stories, but it felt strange. Something nagged at me the whole time. Even after all this time, I still wonder about these odd encounters. Were they just coincidences? Products of my imagination? Maybe they hinted at a deeper truth connected to this town. I don't know. I keep replaying those nights in my mind, haunted by what I might have missed. Halloween felt different. It felt important. I can't shake the feeling that there's more to uncover. What did I overlook? The questions keep me up at night. The morning after the last party, I finally decided to investigate. The uneasiness had settled like a fog inside me. I took a walk through town, hoping to clear my head. As I passed familiar houses, I felt a strange sense of being watched. It wasn't until I reached the old library that my curiosity piqued. The library had always been a place of comfort for me growing up. I stepped inside, greeted by the scent of aged paper and polished wood. My plan was simple: find some books on local history. I hoped they'd shed light on those chilling encounters. I wandered to the history section. Dust particles floated in the sunlight streaming through the windows. I pulled a few books off the shelf, flipping through pages about the town's founding. Then I found an old leather-bound book tucked away in a corner. It didn't have a title, and the cover was faded. Still, I could feel the weight of its secrets. I opened it carefully. The first few pages were filled with the typical account of the town's history. Then, something caught my eye. An image of the town's founder stared back at me, his expression unsettling, eyes almost alive. The next page detailed an event that sent a cold shiver through me. It spoke of a gathering on Halloween night centuries ago, where the founder supposedly made a pact with dark forces.
The text warned that every few decades, the town would encounter strange occurrences as a result of this pact. I paused, heart pounding. Was this what I had felt at the parties? Something about the witch and the ghost loomed over me now. It felt like they were more than just people in costumes. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was just an old tale, but I couldn't shake the sensation that it was connected to me. Then I noticed something at the bottom of the page, a small symbol, almost a sigil. It looked like it belonged to some sort of cult. My head swirled. I didn't even consider the possibility of cults being real in my hometown. I felt drawn to it, like it was calling to me, and I quickly snapped a photo with my phone. Just as I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind me. My heart raced again. I spun around to find a tall figure, cloaked in shadows, watching me from the entrance. It was impossible to see their face, but I could feel their eyes boring into me. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice low and shaking. The figure stepped forward, and I caught a glimpse of a familiar face. It was the woman from the party, the witch. "Ben, you shouldn't be here," she warned, her tone serious. "You're looking for answers, but be careful what you uncover." Suddenly,
She vanished, leaving me alone with the weight of her warning. I felt a deep sense of dread wash over me. What did she mean? As I hurried out of the library, my mind raced. Why had she appeared? What should I do next? I desperately needed answers, but now it felt like I had stumbled onto something much larger than I anticipated. That's when I saw it, the symbol from the book etched into the ground beneath my feet. I froze, staring down at the symbol. The outline was faint, yet I recognized it instantly from the page I had just read. Fear coursed through me. It felt like a warning inscribed in the earth itself. I looked around, feeling the weight of the town settle on my shoulders. The streets seemed less familiar, shadows stretching like fingers around me. I picked up my pace, heart racing as my mind raced through possible explanations. It was just a coincidence, right? Maybe someone doodled it here, or it could even be some local kids playing pranks. But deep down, I knew there was more to it. Leaving the library, I walked faster, wanting to get home. The day was turning ominous, clouds rolling in to shroud the sun. A chill bit at my skin, making my breath catch. But as I turned down a side street, I halted. There, standing in front of a dilapidated house, was the witch again. Her distinct silhouette was unmistakable. I had thought she vanished, but now she was back, staring intently at me. My instinct screamed at me to run, but instead I hesitated, battling my curiosity. "Why do you keep following me?" I shouted, my voice echoing eerily in the stillness. She stepped forward, her tone low but urgent. "You should not meddle with forces you do not understand. The town has its secrets, Ben. Leave them be." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. The gravity of her warning sank in. I could sense an underlying power to her words, an energy that made my hair stand on end. "Just tell me what you know," I shouted in frustration. Before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the old library. My heart dropped. Was someone else there? I turned back, but when I looked to where I'd just been, the library stood untouched, the streets empty. She had vanished once again. Panic surged through me as I made my way back to the library, my feet pounding against the pavement. The air felt charged, heavy with mystery. What had I stumbled onto? As I neared the building, I noticed something glinting on the ground. The same symbol, now vivid against the dullness of the pavement. I knelt down, fingers brushing against the engraved symbol. In that instant, it felt like the air around me shifted. A wave of energy crashed over me, and I was overwhelmed by a flood of images. Masked figures, chanting voices, flames licking. The night sky.
I gasped. It was the gathering from the book. Just then, a soft whisper broke the silence. "Ben?" I jolted, looking around. My heart raced as I realized the voice came from within the library. It was beckoning me, calling me inside. The unease gripped me again. What if whatever secrets lay inside were better left undisturbed? But deep down, I knew I had to go. I had to uncover the truth. I stood up and took a deep breath, steeling myself to face whatever awaited me inside those doors. As I approached the entrance, I felt an almost magnetic pull. The darkness seemed to stretch, whispering promises and threats in equal measure. I stepped inside, eager yet terrified. The door creaked shut behind me with a finality that sent chills down my spine. That's when everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness. It felt thick, like a fog wrapping around me, clouding my senses. I took a cautious step forward, my foot brushing against something cold and metallic. I quickly turned my phone's flashlight on, and the beam sliced through the shadows. A set of iron shelves stood before me, cluttered with books, dust motes dancing in the light. The library was eerily silent, yet the whisper still lingered in the air, filling the corners with an unsettling presence. I forced myself to breathe steadily. Whatever was happening, I needed to stay focused. As the light swept across the room, I noticed a door partially ajar at the far end. It looked out of place, almost new compared to the worn wooden shelves around it. My gut twisted with a mix of fear and curiosity. Should I open it or leave well enough alone? I decided to move closer. My heart thudded loudly, echoing off the walls. The whispers grew louder, swirling in my mind, urging me on. I hesitated just before the door, hand hovering over the knob. It was cold, and I could feel energy crackling off it, almost like static electricity. I gripped the handle, pushing it open slowly. The door creaked, revealing a narrow stairway that spiraled down into darkness. A stale scent hit me, mingled with that unmistakable smell of damp earth. I peered down, trying to gauge how far it went, but the light from my phone barely reached beyond the top step. That's when I spotted something at the bottom, glowing eyes staring back at me. My breath hitched, and for a moment I thought about turning back. But then a familiar sensation washed over me, that same pull I'd felt earlier. I took a step down, then another, compelled to see what awaited in the dark. As I descended, the air grew colder. At the bottom, the spiral opened into a cavernous space. My heart raced. The walls were lined with the same symbols I'd seen in the street, etched into stone and glowing faintly. Flickers of light danced around, casting strange shadows that seemed to shift and writhe. And at the center of the room stood a stone altar, decorated with wilted flowers and small trinkets, old coins, broken dolls, and what looked like a charred piece of fabric. It resembled the kind of offerings you'd hear about in ghost stories. Suddenly, a sound interrupted my thoughts. A rustling, followed by whispers that swirled with urgency. "Ben," it called again, softer this time, but more insistent. I spun around, fear sweeping over me like a tidal wave. Someone, or something, was down here with me. I could feel eyes on my back, a presence like a shroud. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling. And then I saw it. A figure cloaked in shadows emerged from the darkness, the familiar outline unmistakable. The witch. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her, a group of masked figures began to appear, their faces obscured, their intentions unclear. The room crackled with unspoken energy, and I knew I had walked into something far beyond my understanding. Panic surged through me, but it was too late to turn back. I wasn't just a spectator anymore. I was part of whatever dark ritual was unfolding. I couldn't tell if I wanted to run or confront them. But before I could decide, her voice cut through the air again. "You should have stayed away, Ben." That's when everything went dark once more, but this time I could feel the weight of their presence pressing down on me. I could barely see anything. My heart pounded as I stood frozen in place, engulfed in the blackness that had swallowed the room whole. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking, twisting around me until I felt dizzy. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to center myself. I couldn't fall apart now. Then, the darkness split with a flash. A bright light surged into the space, almost blinding me. I squinted against the intensity, and when my vision cleared, I saw the witch again, standing taller and more imposing than before. She lifted her hands, and the masked figures around her moved in unison, as if they were marionettes responding to an unseen puppet master. "Stand before us," the witch commanded, her voice even and low. Urgency radiated from her words. "You are chosen, Ben." Chosen? My mind raced. What did that even mean? I felt a mix of confusion and fear as I cautiously stepped forward. The masked figures remained still, their heads tilted slightly, but their expressions hidden. A flicker of recognition swept over me. One of the masks looked familiar. My heartbeat quickened. Was it someone I knew? The witch began to chant softly, an incantation that felt ancient and heavy. The air grew thick, and the symbols on the walls pulsed brighter in response, as if feeding off her energy. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. It was as if the very act of voicing my fear would summon something darker. Suddenly, the altar trembled, and the trinkets spread across.
It began to shake violently. The wilted flowers disintegrated into ash, swirling around us like angry spirits. A figure within the group of masked individuals stepped forward, pulling their mask to reveal a sharp jawline and cold eyes. It was Alex, my former school friend who I hadn't seen in years. "Why are you here?" I managed to croak, bewildered by his appearance. Alex smirked, his demeanor almost mocking. "You wanted to know, didn't you? You opened the door." I backed away, heart racing. "This isn't some game, Alex." "Isn't it?" he sneered, stepping closer, his hands raised in a gesture of mock surrender. "Don't you see? The real fun has just begun." With his words hanging in the air, the witch's chanting intensified. Shadows flared up from the altar, swirling angrily as the dark energy coalesced into a shape. I felt a sudden chill, an overwhelming sense of foreboding. Something was rising from that stone surface, something alive. "What's happening?" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. The masked figures lifted their arms as if in reverence, their eyes fixed on the darkness pooling at the altar. Just then, a sharp, piercing cry echoed off the walls, a sound that wasn't human. The screech sent shards of ice through my veins. I turned to run, but a force stopped me, a barrier of energy that crackled against my skin. I was trapped. With the figure emerging from the shadows, I realized this was no ordinary Halloween ritual. I was about to find out the depths of what I had unwittingly invited into my life. And deep down, I knew it wouldn't end well. Then the lights flickered back to nothingness, plunging me into the suffocating blackness once again. As my eyes adjusted to the dark again, the world around me felt eerily silent. The cacophony of whispers had vanished, replaced by a heavy stillness that pressed against my ears. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the hairs on my arms stood on end. Then a soft glow appeared in the distance. It flickered like a candle's flame. I felt drawn to it, propelled by an inexplicable force. I took a hesitant step forward, testing the invisible barrier that had held me captive. To my surprise, it faded away. I rushed toward the light, my instincts screaming that I needed to escape this nightmare. As I neared the glow, I realized it emanated from an old lantern hanging from a crooked nail on the wall. The blue flame danced and twisted, casting flickering shadows around the room. But what caught my attention more than the lantern was the figure standing beside it. A woman draped in tattered clothing, her face obscured by a dark scarf. "Who are you?" I called, my voice shaky. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she lifted her hand to point toward the altar. "You must go back," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "They see you," I asked.
Glancing nervously at the shadows pooling at the altar, the last thing I wanted was to be dragged back into that darkness. "The witch," she said, her eyes narrowing. "She has plans for you." My heart raced. "Plans? What plans?" "Don't ask too many questions," she warned, glancing over her shoulder and then back at me. "You don't want them to know you're here." Just then, a low growl echoed from the shadows. I whipped around to see dark shapes shifting, growing bolder, as if they could sense my fear. The witch's chant started rising again, filling the air with a discordant melody. "Run!" the woman hissed, urging me with frantic eyes, "before it's too late." Without thinking, I dashed back the way I had come, heart pounding in my chest. I sprinted past the altar, the masked figures now blending into the dark around them like specters. Just as I reached the entrance, I felt that chilling energy swirl around me again. I paused, looking back. The witch was still at the altar, gesturing with her hands in an intricate pattern. Was she summoning whatever had been awakened? I had to get out. But then, a voice called out, echoing from the shadows. "Ben, you can't leave. You have a role to play." It was Alex, his cold eyes glinting in the dim light. My stomach twisted at the urgency in his tone. "What do you mean, a role?" I shouted back, frustration making my breath sharp. But he only smirked, the expression slicing through the air like a knife. "You're not done yet. Not until you understand why you were chosen." The ground trembled beneath my feet, and the shadows seemed to shift toward me. The ominous presence grew stronger, wrapping around my mind, clouding my judgment. I backed away, prepared to run again, but then I saw it. A face emerging from the shadows, familiar yet twisted. I could hardly believe my eyes. That's when I recognized who it was, and my heart sank. I stumbled backward as the face came into focus, dread knotting in my stomach. It was my sister, Lily, but her eyes were void of their usual warmth. Instead, they glowed with a greenish hue that made my skin crawl. "Ben," she said, her voice a chilling echo of what I remembered. "Lily, what's happening?" I cried, barely able to grasp the surreal horror unfolding before me. The shadows seemed to ripple around her as if they were alive, pulsating with dark energy. "You're part of something much bigger than you realize," she continued, stepping closer, her movements unsettlingly fluid. "You have to follow the path laid out for you." "No, this isn't real," I shouted, squeezing my eyes shut as if I could will her away. The chaos of my thoughts threatened to drown me, each fear pulling me further down. But when I opened my eyes again, she was gone. In her place stood a masked figure.
From the altar, its featureless countenance sinister and mocking. "You think you can escape?" it taunted. "You only delay the inevitable." I hadn't felt this helpless since I was a kid, hiding under my blankets during a storm. Panic surged through me, and I turned to flee. I bolted for the exit, desperate to escape the darkness clawing at my back. However, the air felt thicker now, like walking through a treacle.
Each step became a battle. Suddenly, the chanting swelled, a chaotic symphony that echoed off the stone walls. The masked figures at the altar had moved closer, standing in a semicircle, their heads tilted in unison. I felt their eyes boring into my soul, dredging up every secret, every regret I had ever buried. "Stay!" a voice commanded, one I recognized as the witch's, rich and powerful. I skidded to a halt, the icy tendrils of fear momentarily immobilizing me. Then, as if in slow motion, I watched as shadows elongated, twisting around my feet, anchoring me to the ground. "You can't run from your destiny, Ben," the witch continued, her form darkening against the blue flame of the lantern. "You have a greater purpose." I swallowed hard, dread flooding my senses. "What purpose? What's happening?" My voice trembled, the questions bursting from my lips as desperation rose. With a sweeping gesture, the witch pointed toward the altar, and an image flickered into view, an ancient symbol carved into stone, pulsating with energy that mirrored the rhythm of her chant. "You will awaken the Ancient Ones." Her eyes gleamed as if she had been waiting for this moment. Everything around me blurred, the shadows tangle, warping reality into something terrifying. That's when I saw it. A massive creature emerging from the altar, its form a grotesque blend of man and beast, ancient and new. "Ben!" Alex's voice broke through the chaos, uncertainty lacing his tone. "You need to choose. Join us or face the consequences." The air crackled with tension, and I felt pulled in two directions. One toward the creature that represented chaos and the unknown, the other toward Alex and the horrifying realization of what was expected of me. I was teetering on a precarious edge, and one wrong step would plunge me into the abyss. And then, everything went dark. I gasped, struggling to take a breath as I surfaced from the darkness. My heart raced, the chilling winds of the graveyard biting at my skin. I found myself sprawled on the cold, damp grass, disoriented. The altar loomed nearby, silent now, and the shadows that had filled the air were gone. Had it all been a nightmare? Sitting up, I scanned my surroundings. The night sky was clear, and the usual sounds of the town were absent. A heavy silence hung, making everything feel even more surreal. I rubbed my throbbing head, trying to piece together what had just happened. Lily's face, the masked figures, the witch. I was caught in a web of events I couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, a rustling sound broke the silence. I turned sharply, and my stomach dropped as I noticed a figure moving between the trees. It was tall and cloaked in shadows, almost as if it melted into the night itself. "Ben," the voice called out, smooth and eerie. "You've awakened something." "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. I stood up, my instinct screaming at me to run, but a strange compulsion rooted me to the spot. "Someone who has been waiting," it replied, stepping forward. The figure's face remained concealed in a hood, but I felt an unsettling familiarity. "You cannot ignore your fate, nor the legacy that binds us." I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. "What legacy? What are you talking about?" "Your sister knows," it said, tilting its head slightly. "And she has chosen." My heart raced again, a fresh wave of dread setting in. No, she wouldn't. The figure stepped forward into the dim light filtering through the trees. revealing a glimpse of a face I thought I'd never see again. A soft gasp escaped my lips as I recognized the familiar features. Lily! But it wasn't her. The flicker of her expression made it clear that I was in the presence of something darker. You must make your choice, Ben. There are forces at work that no one can understand, not even you. I held my ground, uncertainty warring with fear. What choice? Join us, the figure urged, its voice wrapping around me like a whisper. Help us bring forth the awakening. That's when the ground beneath me began to shift violently. I could feel the earth tremble as though something gigantic was stirring below. I glanced around, panic prickling my skin. This was not happening. Help! I screamed, backing away as the figure reached for me, its skeletal fingers barely grazing my skin. Get away from me! In that moment of dread, I made a split-second decision. I turned and ran, dodging branches and roots that clawed at me. I plunged deeper into the woods, not daring to look back, heart pounding painfully in my chest. The creature, whatever it was coming closer. A low growl erupted from the depths of the forest, a terrifying sound that echoed against my desperate breaths. Then, everything went silent again. I skidded to a stop, breathless, and realized I had stumbled into an old clearing. Moonlight illuminated strange markings on the ground, symbols I couldn't recognize, but they were reminiscent of the ones I had seen on the altar. Ben! Alex's voice cut through the stillness, and relief washed over me. I was still not safe. What are you doing here? But the urgency in his voice sent a chill down my spine. We need to leave. They're coming. Before I could respond, I heard it again, a rustling in the trees, closer this time. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Ben, run! And that's when I saw it. Shadows slithering from the forest edge.
Countless eyes gleaming in the darkness, all watching and waiting. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed Alex's arm and sprinted through the clearing, my legs pumping with adrenaline. The rustling grew louder behind us. I could almost feel the breath of whatever hunted us on my neck. "Where to?" I gasped, searching for a direction. "There's a path over here." Alex pointed ahead, pulling me toward a narrow trail that snaked between the trees. "We need to get to town. They can't follow us there." The path was tight, the underbrush scratching at my arms and legs. I felt the panic rising, clawing at my throat. "What are they?" "I don't know," he panted, his eyes wide with fear. "But they're tied to the altar. I overheard some strange things. We just need to get out." As we ran, the shadows seemed to close in around us. I heard whispers, like the wind carrying voices from the shadows. They called my name in a low hum that sent chills down my spine. It felt as if the very forest had come alive, watching, anticipating our every move. Just ahead, I spotted a break in the tree line. The faint glow of streetlights flickered through the branches. We were getting close. "Almost there!" I cried out, hope flickering within me. Then I stumbled. My foot caught on a root, and I went down hard, tasting dirt and grass. "Ben!" Alex cried, skidding to a halt. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline pushing me forward again. But as I rose, I caught sight of something from the corner of my eye. A figure, draped in shadows, emerging from the trees. My heart sank. It was Lily. Not the Lily I remembered, but the haunted reflection of what she once was. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "Ben," she called, her voice enticing but cold. "You must understand." "What happened to you?" I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. "You're not her!" The figure stepped closer, the eerie light intensifying. "You're drawn to this, Ben. You can't deny the bond. Together, we can awaken the truth." I felt my breath hitch in my throat. The shadows around us shifted,
creeping closer, snaking towards me as if they were alive. "Don't listen," Alex yelled, his voice breaking. "It's a trap. We have to get out now." I hesitated, torn. I wanted to reach out, to believe there was still some part of my sister left. But the shadows were thickening, encircling us. The air grew heavy, charged with malevolence. "You can't run from who you are," Lily continued, her voice soft yet chilling. "The legacy will find you." Suddenly, I remembered the symbols, the ones on the altar, the ones in the clearing. Something clicked in my mind, a piece of the puzzle edging closer to completion. "Run!" Alex shouted, snapping me out of my trance. He pulled me no longer just by my arm, but by my will. We surged forward, tearing through the thinning edge of the forest. As we broke free into the main road, I glanced back one last time. The shadows halted at the tree line, their eyes glaring like embers in the night. "What just happened?" Alex panted, glancing over at me. "I don't know," I replied, panting heavily. "But if they're connected to the altar and to Lily, we need to figure this out before it's too late." A feeling of dread settled in my gut as I turned to follow Alex into the town. Someone or something was waiting for us. I could feel it. And what I uncovered next would change everything. I stumbled down the quiet street, leaving the echoing shadows of the forest behind. The familiar town felt different now, almost hostile, as the chill from the encounter seeped into my bones. With Alex at my side, I tried to process everything that had happened in that haunted glen. Was Lily truly gone? Had the darkness consumed her? We reached his car, parked along the desolate road, and jumped inside. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to contact someone, anyone who could help us understand what we had just witnessed. Alex's fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel. "We need to get to the police or someone who knows about the history of this town," he urged. "The police? After everything we've seen?" I shot back, frustration bubbling over as I recalled the faces of the masked figures. "They'll think we're insane. We need to figure this out ourselves." But what would that mean? I could still picture the altar verging on the grotesque and the symbols swirling in the darkness like a dance of fate. The image of my sister emerged again, taunting but eerily familiar. The bond she spoke of kept pulling at me, urging me to confront whatever myth had gripped our town. "Fine, but we have to find out what that symbol means, and fast," Alex relented, his face taut with concern. "We can start at the old library again. Maybe we missed something." I nodded, my heart racing once more as we drove towards the library. The shadows still clawed at the corners of my mind, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. As we pulled up, the library loomed like a giant watching over us, its doors slightly ajar, as if anticipating our arrival. "This doesn't feel right," Alex muttered, glancing at the building with distrust. "It's the only place we can start," I replied, stepping out into the night. The air was still heavy with secrets, and the scent of damp paper and age engulfed me as we stepped inside. We retraced our steps to the history section, fingers skimming over the spines of dusty books. I felt drawn to the leather-bound volume I had found before. But as I pulled it from the shelf, something fell from its pages. A neatly folded piece of paper. My heart raced as I unfolded it. It was a map. Hand-drawn and faint, tracing an area on the outskirts of town that I didn't recognize. "What is that?" Alex asked, peering over my shoulder. "It must be the site of something. The pact. They say it has something to do with rituals," I murmured, my mind racing. The words almost felt like a language of their own, driving me toward a truth I was desperate to uncover. "Are you sure it's safe?" Alex questioned, his voice tight but edgy with curiosity. "It's the only way," I insisted. "We wouldn't learn anything stuck here in the library. We needed to confront whatever lingered in the darkness waiting for us. As we exited, the air thickened around us. I glanced at Alex, hesitating beside me. "We can't go back now. We need to see this through," I urged silently. He nodded slowly, an unspoken understanding passing between us, and we climbed back into the car. As we drove toward the indicated site, the streetlights dimmed, leaving only the moon to illuminate our way. Anxiety curled low in my stomach, intertwining with something almost thrilling, an impending reveal, clouded in mystery. As we neared our destination, I felt the air shift around us. Shadows morphed and danced in the corners of my vision. The map led us to an old farm, its dilapidated barn appearing like a sentinel against the night sky. "This is it," I whispered, heavy with doubt. "Let's just make this quick," Alex said, scanning the area warily. We stepped into the expansive darkness of the barn, the wooden beams creaking above us. With our flashlights illuminating boxes and forgotten tools, I noticed a small staircase leading down into a cellar. My heart raced, the sense of something waiting beneath the surface almost palpable. "It should be down there," I breathed, sharing a look with Alex filled with uncertainty. We made our way down the stairs, my mind spinning with visions of what lay ahead. As we reached the bottom, the air grew cold, and I could see more symbols etched along the walls. The same sigils I had seen everywhere else. "I don't like this," Alex muttered, but I pressed forward, my light revealing an altar in the center of the room, similar to the one in the woods. It was weathered by time, but still emanated a magnetic force. "What are we doing?" Alex asked as I approached, unable to fight the pull I felt. Shadows lingered at the edges, distant whispers warming the cool air. In that moment, all my questions tumbled inside me, a swell of fear and hope. "I need to know what happened to Lily," I confessed, my voice breaking like glass. "I can't lose her to this. She's still in there, I know it." Suddenly, energy erupted from the altar, striking through the darkness, and I felt it shift, crackling in the air as shadows began to swirl violently. The walls vibrated with an otherworldly pulse that summoned voices long forgotten, and I braced myself, hoping this time I could withstand their allure. "Ben!" a voice cried, and the shadows drew back, revealing a figure emerging beneath the light. It was Lily once more, her eyes glowing with an unsettling brilliance. "You have come to understand." "Lily!" I gasped, stepping toward her. But something held me back, an instinctive fear that warned me not to draw too near. "You have to come back with me. Whatever this is, it's wrong." "No," she said, her voice echoing weirdly against the stone. "This is our legacy. Your choice to return is not entirely yours." Beneath her, the shadows swelled, coiling around her feet, dark tendrils reaching toward me. "What do you mean?" I demanded, desperate. "The pact has awakened," Lily whispered, her features contorting slowly. "You are part of this now." The shadows writhed, pulling her deeper into their grasp, and I felt an energy surge through me, an ancient force binding me to her. "No, fight it, please," I shouted, but it felt like shouting at the tide. "Time is running out," came the echoing cry, pulling away into the void. "This cannot be undone." And as I stood there, cringing, anguish clawing at my heart, the truth hung like an ambiguous weight against my soul. Shadows thickened, realities merged, and the scream of a new destiny filled the air, tugging at my essence. In the moments that followed, I struggled, aware that I needed to make a choice, but as I turned, the altar began to tremble, the energy building to a crescendo that spun the very world around me. I launched myself toward the stairs, dragging Alex with me. But as I fled, a humorless laugh echoed behind, mingling with frantic whispers, an unsettling promise that neither of us could run from. What would happen to my sister, my hometown? The questions haunted me like a shadow.
We burst into the night, the cool air wrapping around us, oddly comforting. We ran, not knowing if we had escaped or simply postponed what awaited us. Whatever beckoned from the shadows lingered behind, slithering like smoke through the cracks of my mind. As dawn broke with a muted hue, my heart still raced, the unresolved dread clawing at my insides. I had opened a door I didn't already understand. I moved away shortly after, seeking safety from the darkness. Those nights replay in my mind, echoing with questions that never find resolution. I still think about the pact, the whispers, and the legacy that I can't shake off. I moved to a different city hoping to forget, but sometimes, in quiet moments, I wonder about Lily and what might still live in the shadows of that town.